Coaching Soccer Weekly, episode 385, Building from the Back, Mastering Transition and Possession Play, entertaining, educational, and inspiring soccer content to help make you a more effective coach, player, or soccer parent. Hello and welcome back to Coaching Soccer Weekly, presented by World Class Coaching. My name is Sega Verbinovich, and this is the podcast devoted to bringing you cutting-edge methods, techniques, and tactics for coaching soccer. It doesn't matter if you're an experienced coach who has been training teams for many years, or if you're new to coaching and working with the team for the very first time. There's something we can all do to take our coaching to the next level. Welcome back to the show. We have a really great show for you today, and by we, I mean I. There's something that I noticed this weekend that I think is really going to help us. We're a very possession type team, and possession comes in a lot of different ways. You know, when people talk about possession play, they're constantly thinking about just passing the ball, right? Holding possession, and that's not really, to me, what possession signifies. For me, possession is about holding the ball in an effective situation, right? So we're not just playing in the back, right? That's not really effective possession, right? We're not just passing the ball, right? There's a lot of 1v1s where we're beating players, but if you beat a player, that's still possession. You still have the ball after you've beaten the player. So there's some really interesting things that I noticed today and why I think we've had a lot of trouble keeping possession. So I'll talk about that. I'll obviously talk about the games this weekend. And something else that's, I think, a little controversial. And by a little, I mean a lot controversial. So we'll see that. And let's get into it. So this weekend's games is brought to you by Vio. Vio is an amazing tool for you, your soccer academy, your soccer club, any soccer activity that you are doing. It's a great way to record games and get highlights and just be able to watch back your games and analyze them, which is something that I do every Monday with my players. We have a Zoom session, and this week was no different. And when your team is struggling or you just don't know what's going wrong, it's a really great way to make sure that your team has an answer, right? And if you can watch back the games, it makes it a lot easier to figure out what's wrong. And that's really what I did. And that's what I do every week. So thanks for Vio for sponsoring the show. If you want to get $200 off, you can use our code, which is listed in the show notes. I recently figured out how to do show notes. I know there have been problems with the show notes. I did not know how to do them. I apologize, but now I do. So now I will put things in the show notes. So let's talk about this weekend. We started out with our 2011 team. Our 2011 team, in my opinion, is very strong. And I thought we played pretty well. We got absolutely destroyed, but figured out why. There are the obvious reasons that we're trying to build out of the back, and the teams that we play against don't really do that. But the other obvious reasons are, you're not receiving the right way. You're making mistakes when you're passing, receiving. You're just making small little mistakes, which when you do them in the back, just end up in goals. A couple of back passes to the goalkeepers that just weren't done the right way, just put us in a really bad position, and they ended up scoring. So just lots of little mistakes like that, but it goes deeper than that for me. And I think I figured out why we didn't really keep possession and why we weren't able to build successfully. Now, a successful building out of the back for me is anything that gets you from the goalkeeper into the other team's half. Now, ideally, obviously, you want to end up with a goal or you want to end up with a shot, but 10 out of 10 times, that's not realistic if you're playing in the right level. You don't want it to be 10 out of 10, because if it's 10 out of 10 times you're successfully building out of the back, it means the league that you are in is just way too easy. So you want to aim for, I would say, maybe a 7 out of 10 times, maybe 8 out of 10 times being in the other team's half, getting to the other team's half. And out of those 10 times, maybe 3 of those times, 2 of those times end up in a goal or a shot. That to me is very successful out of 10 times. And if you can do that, let's say 20 times, then to me that looks really good, right? If you're building out of the back 20 times in the game and you can get 4 shots off from building out of the back, that's incredible. Now, there are obviously different moments in the game, right? You have turnovers and things like that where you're winning the ball and then you transition in maybe the middle third or the final third. So you should be getting about 10 shots altogether, maybe 4 from building out, maybe you're getting, 5 from the middle, and then maybe 2 from the final third or something like that, right? That to me is a very successful game if you can do that consistently. So to me, that's really what building out of the back is. It's the ability to build out from your goalkeeper, and I really mean your goalkeeper, not anything else. I don't think anything else I consider at least building out of the back. So it's from goalkeeper into the other team's half. Now, the problem is that when you do that, you should be able to maintain possession. Just because you kind of entered their half, that doesn't mean, okay, now it's free for all. No, once you get into their half, then you can establish possession, right? And establishing that possession is not just about passing the ball. It's not just about switching the ball. Sometimes it's about beating a player 1v1. Because guess what? If you've beaten a player 1v1, you still have the ball. So you still have possession. So for us, maintaining possession is not just about passing the ball. It's not just about keeping the ball. It's about doing it so that we are effective with the ball, that we are attacking, that we are getting forward. And it's not always about going forward, but the idea, if we go backwards, is to get forward. We don't just go backwards for the sake of going backwards. We go backwards maybe to attract the defender so that we now have space and then we can attack. We go backwards because we can't go forwards. So we go backwards to switch play. But it's never just, let's just pass the ball for the sake of it. Now, I talk a lot about keeping possession, but what I haven't really done is talk about keeping possession in relation to the opponent, right? Because that's what matters here. If you're playing against a very easy team, it's not difficult to build out of the back. It's when the teams get tougher or they match your level, you are playing with other players of likeness, of the same skill or around the same skill as your players. That's when things get tough. So it's the opponent that really creates the problems. So for example, with our 2011 team, we played a decent team. They weren't, crazy good or anything like that, but they were at about our level. We also had a bunch of 2012s. We also didn't have our goalkeeper. So it made the skill level very, very even. And when you make a mistake, let's say we'll walk through this, the goalkeeper has it, passes to the defender. We're playing a 3-4-1 with that center as a defensive kind of midfield. So the ball goes to the wide defender, He makes a pass to the winger, which is the wide midfielder. And the wide midfielder loses the ball, maybe from a 1v1, maybe a bad pass, or we lose the ball in the when the wide midfielder passes the ball to the center midfielder, right? So we lose that ball. Now, as soon as the other team wins the ball and they're in our basically almost final third, they're looking to get the ball to the forward, or they're looking to make any pass to a player that's in front of them, right? And because they press, there are usually players in front of them when they win the ball. And that was a huge issue for us when we would lose the ball, because we would lose the ball a lot. Because again, we're trying to build out every time, and they're just mistakes. We're playing a good team, so there's pressure on us. We're playing with younger kids, younger players, so it's 2012s are losing the ball a lot, which is all okay. But the problem is when we lose that ball, and there's an option in the final third. So to negate that, what you need to do is you need to push your defense up, because now if they win the ball and your defense is up, they can't get the ball to the forwards because they would be offside. So if you can push your defense up, then that now allows for you to make that mistake. And if they win the ball, then it becomes tougher because then they have to do something, right? Then they have to beat you 1v1, or then they have to make a penetrating pass, which is a lot tougher than just passing to an open forward who's in space. It also reduces the gap between the defense and the midfield, which I think is one of the biggest problems we have about maintaining possession. Now, what I'm going to say is, I think, a little controversial. And the reason that I say that is because there might be opportunities where it hurts the development of the player, and it hurts the development of the player. I'll just give you the example and kind of what I've seen. So when teams like Manchester City build out of the back, a lot of the time what they do is, and we're talking old Manchester City, and when they played in the 4-3-3, they would get the ball to the wingers. The wingers would be at about half, and then as soon as they would get the ball to the wingers, they would reset the ball right away to the defenders or the fullbacks. And what that does is it keeps the team together. However, in the youth age groups, and you know I'm very big on 1v1, it takes away the opportunity to try the 1v1, because if all you're doing when you're getting the ball in the wide space at half is just resetting so that you can keep the team together, from a tactical point of view, it's fantastic, because what it does is the attention right away leaves the wingers and it goes right to the defenders. So sorry, that didn't make sense. If the ball goes to the wingers then reset the opposing team's defense. Their eyes are attracted to your defenders, and their eyes are therefore taking off of your wingers. So that gives your wingers space and time to attack, which is fantastic. And again, if we're talking about the older age groups and we're talking about trying to win, that's great. But the idea that every time the wingers get it, they have to reset, I don't like it. I don't like it because it takes away the option of the 1v1, right? Which is something that I want my players to continue to look at. So the idea should be at this point that as soon as the ball goes to the wingers, the defenders push up as if that's what's going to happen. And they need to be there and they need to be yelling for the ball. And we want our players to have the confidence to say, not this time. I see a 1v1, I'm going to go for it. Or there are two players ahead of them, then they reset. And that's fine, right? But the idea of keeping the defenders close enough to the midfielders and the forward is really powerful. And if you lose that ball there, then all of a sudden the other team, because of offsides, can't make those long passes, right? They just can't. And what's great is if they, in the youngest age groups, if they cherry pick and keep a forward up there, that gives us an advantage of an extra player, right? So I don't mind if they cherry pick, because first of all, at the U9 age groups, not that many kids can just drive a ball down to the forward. And even if they do, guess what? I've got my goalkeeper there who's pushed up as well. So, and if we get scored on because they're cherry picking, I don't mind that at all. But the idea of playing close together from not from a half space point of view, right? We don't want to limit how close we are from a half space point of view, but maybe playing in 2/3 rather than kind of having the defense in the first third and then the midfielders in the second third and then the forwards in the final. Like that doesn't work. So we really want to try and condense the team together so that we can connect, right? And we talk about a lot of the time our center players in the center space being the bridges, but they can only be the bridges if they can make the passes. And suddenly what happens when you bring those players higher is that they're able to bridge more players, right? So before, a play from the winger to the opposing side center midfielder would be very dangerous and it would be a very long pass. But if you push up, then it makes it more doable. Hopefully that makes sense. But the idea for me is simply the defense has to push up. And the responsibility goes to two people, in my opinion. It goes to the goalkeeper, first and foremost, which I talked about, I think, last episode or the episode before that. And it goes to my center defensive midfielder, because my center defensive midfielder for me is the second most important player on the team. They're usually my captain. They're usually the one that talk the most, and they're the ones that need to push up because they want to get involved. So they like to get involved in the play, and because of that, I want them to get everyone else involved as well. So those are the two players that, for me, have to do that. Now, I think if we go into this weekend with that attitude, push up is the most important thing from our defense, then I think we'll see a lot more success. And on top of that, we'll be pushing up more, which in turn will give us possession and holding possession in a higher place. And that's really what we're looking at. We still have yet to establish possession in the other team's half, mostly because as soon as we have some sort of possession, our players are able to go 1v1 and get a shot off. So that's fine. But it's those times where we lose the ball and we get caught a lot in transition. So I don't mind getting caught in transition, but if we have our defenders up, then suddenly they're offside and now we're not caught as much. Hopefully that makes sense. But that's what I noticed all from watching Vio this weekend. This next topic, I think, is probably the most controversial thing I'll ever talk about. And I'm going to try and do it in the best way that I can. I'm going to be super honest with you, because that's what the show is about. And a lot of you aren't going to like it, but that's okay. When I get to a game, to me, the only thing that matters is my players' development. Nothing else matters. Nothing. I don't care about the ref. I don't care about the other team. I don't care about the other coach. I don't care about the other parents. I don't care about anything else. I don't care about the score. I care about my players' development. In order to do that, I like to control the environment. Now, I know just from experience, if I can get into the coach's head, the other team's head, the ref's head, then their focus is not on the game, it is on me. And when your focus is on me, I am getting what I want out of the game because you can't focus on it. That's the logic behind it. Now, it started off when I lost my voice. When I lost my voice, I started bringing my speaker that I use during practice to the game. And every single game I got looks, I got comments from other coaches and stuff like that, and laughs and all that. And that's when I started to see the effect that it had on the game and how much the other coach was focused on me, how much the other players were focused on me, the other parents were focused on me. And because of that, I pretty much had the only voice in the game. The coach didn't really know what was going on. Parents, the other players. When the attention is on you and not on the ball, and we know this because I've talked about this a bunch of times, it's a distraction, you're able to manipulate the game a lot more. So what started off as a joke is now the thing I love most. And I love getting into the other coach's head. It's one of my favorite things. And the reason it's so successful is because I'm louder than they are. Now, normally it's screaming, right? And I don't like that. I don't like when a coach is louder because they're screaming louder. That looks bad. But when I'm talking in this voice right here and it's coming out louder, and my points come across more clear, more calm, and he has to yell, it gets frustrating. It gets frustrating for the other coach, especially in 9v9 and 11v11 when the field is so big and the coaches have to scream to get to the other side. So it's done a lot, and I've gotten a lot of coaches angry, and I love it. I love that kind of feistiness. But what I love most is that I control the environment. And this happened this weekend a lot. And I get more, not aggressive, but I get more controlling as my team is losing. The more we're losing by, the more I affect the game, because I need to be there as a support system. If my players are losing confidence, we lose. I want my players to be confident throughout the whole game, constantly thinking that they're better, because if you continuously think you're better, you're going to try the things that scare you the most, right? If you think you're inferior to someone in a game, you're just going to play safe because you're scared, right? Playing scared is not the way we want to play. We want to play brave. We want to play creative, and we want to outplay them, right? So this whole month and just pretty much this whole summer, that's where we've been, because everyone is constantly away. So we're constantly losing. We're constantly getting battered. We're constantly getting destroyed because our 2016s are playing with our 2014s. Our 2012s are playing, well, no, our 2013s are playing with our 2012s. Our 2012s are playing with, everyone's playing up. So we're getting it. So the more we're losing, the louder I am, and the more I am affecting the game, and the more the attention is on me, if that makes sense. Because again, I want that attention on me, because then the coach is not focused on the game and has no idea what's going on. Now, I want to be clear. When my team is winning, when my team is playing well, when my players don't need my voice isn't there, because I want them to be independent. I want them to find success on their own. It's only in those moments where they need you, they need that voice, in which I'm annoying. And boy, was I annoying this weekend. This was the first weekend this happened in our 2014 game. First of all, that game was absolutely ridiculous. The scheduling alone was just a nightmare. The league gave us two different schedules. So we had it 1 o'clock. They had it at 12. So we ended up playing at 1. Again, I control the narrative. But we had our 2016s, 2015s, and we only had 3. So we had three 2016s, 2 of which had never played before in a game. We had 1 2015, and then we had 3 2014s, right? So we're not big at this point. We're not strong physically. Technically we're fine, but the other team just brought the biggest, strongest kids that they had, and those kids were massive. So from the beginning, even before we started, I kind of said, what are you doing? This is tier 2. Like, this is not okay to have these types of players here. So I knew it was going to be bad. On top of that, it was raining really hard. So that made it difficult, although actually when it started raining, we played really well. So my voice was loud from the beginning, to the point where the ref, for the first time, interfered and said, stop it. Stop with the microphone. To which I said, no. And I didn't. Which I think, again, it's the same attitude of, it's not about you, it's about my players' development. And I know it's a really selfish attitude to have, but I'm okay with it. We built the academy on development. So anywhere we go, anything that we do, practice, games, Zoom, whatever it is development first. And there is no one that's going to stand in the way of that. That's the attitude. And that's what I firmly believe should be. Mind you, I don't think the ref has any authority to tell me to not talk on my microphone. There's no rule against it. It's just annoying. So he told me to stop, but I didn't. Same thing with the 2011 game. The other coach, very frustrated because, again, my voice is louder. We were getting destroyed. My voice is louder, stronger, and I'm okay with that. This is a very controversial topic because there is respect, right? There is that idea of you go in and you need to respect the other team, and we do. But the sportsmanship part is something that is a little bit of a struggle, to be honest with you, from a coaching point of view, not a player point of view, right? I am the first one to yell at my player, and I mean yell at my players when they talk back to the ref. And when they come off, I tell them, my job is the ref. I will take care of the ref. You will take care of the game. That's how it works. Okay. So things like that, sportsmanship wise, bad tackle, stuff like that. If we're not fair, I will be the first coach to pull him off, talk to him. But as me personally, I feel like I'm taking away part of that game from the other team. And I think that's the controversial part, that I don't know how ethical it is, to be completely honest with you. And it's tough. Now, have I gone up against coaches that were the same way? Yes. And how did I feel in those moments? I loved it because it was a battle. And you can't, as a coach, preach for your players to go out and battle and fight for every ball and all that if you yourself as a coach can't do that, can't handle that. So in those moments, I will rise up and I will take it and I will be right there. And there have been moments caught on VO where I will never square up against anyone. I don't fight ever. I did do MMA and all that, but I would never hands, all that. But things get heated and I'm okay with it because, again, players come first. And in my opinion, if you're so focused on me, great, do that. Okay. I don't mind that. And what I love is that even though my voice is the loudest, it is the most annoying, it is never, ever, ever offensive or anything like that. There are things that I say to get under the team's nerves and all that. But again, eyes on me, but it's never taken to that extreme point. And I think that's okay. I think that's what makes it okay. Now, let's talk about what the point of this is. The point of this is really to give you the tools that you need in those situations where you're getting killed. Simple as that. It's 8-0. And that's when you bring this out. Or when it's 5-0. That's when you take over the game. And you have to make sure you take over the game because you don't want to lose your players. And I know a lot of us know what that's like when you just lose your players or lose the parents or just you lose everything. And that's a terrible feeling. You need to be in control in those situations because that's a situation where there is the least amount of control when you are getting destroyed. So what can you say? What are things that you can say to take back the game? The first strategy that I'll talk about, I want to call the over-positive coach. And that's someone that any little thing makes it as though it was a winning World Cup goal, right? That's how excited you should be. Any Maradona, any great through ball, pass, game-changing moment, even regular moments, a great pass back, anything is a World Cup goal. And what that's going to do is it's just going to lift the spirit of the player and increase their confidence. On top of that, what it'll start to do is it'll start to have you dominate the game from a coaching point of view. And if you're ever struggling as to what to say, this is a really great start. Find anything, any moment, and just talk about how positive it is. Okay, great pass, Johnny, fantastic. Okay, great tackle. Love that shot. Love that Maradona. Love those scissors. Okay. The second strategy is something I'm going to call next thing. This is something I've been doing for a long time, but the word next thing is something that I picked up in Kansas. Now, I don't say next thing, but it's the attitude of next thing. So the attitude is it already happened, don't worry about it. Okay. And when you are continuously getting scored on, or even when you get scored on, I always do this. So it's always, for example, we're building out of the back, we're trying, we're, making a couple of passes, and then we lose the ball and get scored on. What you'll hear from me is, I don't mind that. I don't mind that. Fantastic building out of the back. We're playing the right way. Keep going, right? So the negativity saying, don't worry, it's okay. Everything is fine. You've made a mistake, but don't worry about it. Let's move on. Now, I think this is where a lot of coaches make a huge mistake, because game time is really not the time where you should be correcting mistakes. If you have to correct mistakes at the game, it's too late, right? It's like when a kid goes into the exam, the game is the exam for me. If the kid makes a mistake in the exam, it was because they weren't taught properly. So that's not the moment. The moment is in practice. So it's okay to make that mistake, and they have to know that. It's okay, you made that mistake, but it's on you as the coach to make a note physically or mentally, probably physically, that you will go back to that in training and work on it, because it's too late now. Okay, the heat of the moment, they just got scored on, they made a huge mistake, some of their teammates are upset, everything, parents are yelling this, that. It's not the time. It's not the time or place. Okay, so that's the second thing. Remember, first thing, positivity. Second thing, anything negative, it's okay, don't worry about it, let's move on. Focus on the next thing. The next thing that I do is, I think when it starts to get a little controversial, there's a right way to do it and there's a wrong way to do it. In my opinion, coaching is a tug of war battle, okay? And you always want to have more rope than the other coach, right? So this technique here is really about the other team. And I'm going to call this exploiting their weakness. Most teams that we play have some things in common. They kick the ball up. They don't build it out of the back because they're kicking the ball up. All they're doing is passing, okay? And they're just kind of not really playing or doing anything the right way. So I'll say things like, they're just kicking it up, defense push back, okay? These are the things that will take the power away from the other coach and bring it to you. Now, I have gotten red carded for this before. This was the only red card that I have ever gotten, and here's word for word what I said. They cannot pass, all they do is kick it up. Can we get our defense back? Now, that was me 4 or 5 years ago. Is it the right thing to say? Probably not. But should I have gotten red carded? No, no chance. Okay, first of all, it was a friendly. We were just getting, again, destroyed. But I don't think that's that bad, right? The only reason it needs to be said is because that's what's happening, right? So this is one that I pull off and that I talk about if I'm really starting to see the other team starting to get smug, show bad sportsmanship, the other coach gets annoying, and that's when I bring it back. And that to me is a way of relax, me kind of saying that to the coach, relax, I get it. You're winning. I'm going to do my thing though. So stop talking. Enough, right? That's the kindest way that I know how to say that. So here's again what I say in those situations. Okay. I'll talk to my players, and this is usually after a goal that they've scored where they've literally just kicked it up. Okay. I'll say, don't worry. All they did was kick it up. Let's focus on what we're doing, build out, keep going. Okay. So these are, again, this is, in my opinion, where it starts to get a little dicey too, because you're commenting about the other team. And I don't think that's always okay. But again, if you approach it the right way, I personally don't have a problem with it. And I know some people will, and that's okay. This isn't for everyone. I know that. Um, I want to be in control, as I've said multiple times, and this is how I do it. The last thing is something that happened this weekend, and that's giving the players the ability to do this. And this is what we talk about when we talk about a feisty player. This weekend, our 2011s, we had a new player, a new 2011 goalkeeper, not a goalkeeper. He played goalie for the first half, and someone else wanted to play goalkeeper. He's a player. We didn't have our goalkeeper, as I mentioned. So he played out in the second half. And because he is new, he took what I said literally, which was get on, I forget the player's number, but get on this player and stay with him the whole time. And he was on him like glue. And I mean that, like glue, like he was touching him the whole time. And this was a player on the other team that was just talking the whole game. Very bad sportsmanship, talking to the ref, all this stuff. And as soon as my player did that, said nothing. And he was on my side too, which I really loved because I was able to control what was coming out of his mouth. And every time I saw him escalate, then I would calm him down. I would say, stop talking. You're doing fantastic. Stay on him like glue. And that was it. And you could see the other player getting just frustrated, starting to make reckless tackles, yelling to the ref, this, that. And giving the players the power to do this is one of the best ways to overcome. Can we focus on making sure we are on them like glue? Can we focus on that? Right? That is what you can say to your players. Can we get so close to them and stay on them so close all the time that they get frustrated? Nothing that he did was illegal. Nothing that he did. But what was happening is that player got frustrated. Now, when that player got frustrated, because he was a talker and started talking to the ref and all this, then his coach got involved. And when that happens, buckle up. Buckle up, because that is one of my favorite things. And I get it. Listen, hey, it's the coach's job. It's the coach's job to protect their players, 100%. So when that happens, I love it. Absolutely love it. And this brings me to my last point. When the game is feisty, when people are angry, you should never, ever, ever talk to the other coach. Ever. If there's any negative feeling that you have for the other team, you should never talk to the other coach, ever. Talking about the ref, okay, I get it. I've done that when, me and the other coach look at each other and we go, okay, come on, this is ridiculous. The ref is, but anything negative about the other team, you should never, ever talk to the other coach. Because again, we go back to the beginning. Your job is to be in control. Your job is to develop your players. If you are talking to the other coach, you're in his head. And you don't want to be there. I promise you, you don't want to be there. So here's what happens. Here's what you say. In those situations, you talk to the ref. And if you want to get in their heads, all you have to do is simply talk to the ref as if he's the other coach. Simple as that. So the example of this weekend, where again, I never spoke to the coach. You say one thing to the coach, and I'll tell you what it is in a second. But after his comment, I knew in my mind that all he is thinking about now is the physicality of my players. That's all. That's what I know. He's commented about it. His player's upset about it. He's talked to the ref about it. He's talked to his players about it. That's what he's thinking about. If you can make a comment about that to the ref, then he will talk to you. Simple as that, right? And it's as much as, going back to that battle, right? There was a moment where the ref finally gave them a call, because the player was again talking to the ref, saying he's pushing me this, that. And then I went up to the ref so that the other coach could hear. And I simply said, I understand that, but he's only doing this because the player is hitting him, tripping him, holding him. He has no other choice. To which now the other coach is talking to me because I know he's thinking about it. At this point now, and this is my favorite line out of everything that I ever say, I turn to him always, and it's the same thing. I didn't know your name was the ref. I am not talking to you. I am only talking to the ref. And at that point, something triggers and the other coach will lose his mind. Simple as that. And at that point, you've won, and that's it. And that's it. Now, again, I want to be super clear about everything in this episode. This is something I've experienced a lot of because of the situation that we are in. If you are getting absolutely destroyed, these are the tactics that you can use to control the game to benefit your players. None of what I do, none of what I say, none of it at all is malicious, and never, ever, ever do I talk to the other coach. Ever. And the great thing about VO, great thing about it is that it's on camera. And the amount of times that I have been able to send to the district a video of another coach is just too many. The idea, the goal, everything that you are doing as a coach is for player development. The second you walk that line is when you lose. I know what we spoke about is very controversial. I think of my players as my kids. I never want them to get bullied, and I never want them to be so out of their depth and so out of their element that they lose their confidence. So I will do everything in my power, and I mean everything in my power, to make sure that my players are always safe and confident in these games, even when we're losing. Now, I know that was heavy. There's a lot of people that don't agree, but that's okay. Because the idea is, let's talk about it. Now, if you have something to say, love it. Coaching Soccer Weekly Facebook group. Coaching Soccer Weekly Facebook group. Write your comment. This is going to be a huge debate. I know it. Now, do want to say, I have changed the rules with Coaching Soccer Weekly. In order to post on that, it has to go through me. So it's not just people posting stuff anymore, because it used to be like that. I didn't like it. So guess what? If you're not respectful, it's just not going to go up. So Coaching Soccer Weekly Facebook group. If you're not there, there's over 1,000 coaches on there already. Okay? Get in there. Tell me what you're thinking. Okay? Remember, be respectful. And always, always, always keep the player in mind first.
Hey, thanks for watching all the way to the end, and you can check out more of our videos right here. And if you haven't done so already, I would really appreciate it if you'd hit the like button and the subscribe button.